Hi everyone, welcome to School of Scarlet. I am so happy to be here with you today. Today we're going to be sharing about addiction. I'm going to be sharing with you my own story around addiction. I'm going to be sharing how that all came about. And so I'm going to be sharing two different addictions that I've had, and you could say I still have, however you want to see it. And so I'm going to be sharing these two because they kind of went hand in hand for me and they kind of blossomed and occurred at the same time. So I kind of want to paint that picture for you. Now, the purpose of this video isn't just to share my sorrows or addiction stories or anything like that. It's really to transmute it back into love. See, addictions or any of the things that you struggle with, whatever it happens to be, is really true love. It's just love. It's meant to be transmuted into the opposite of it, or the healthy version of it, the whole complete version of it. Sometimes we're working with a distorted version of something. And so we get into these kind of perversions or the distortions around it, and it creates something that doesn't look or feel as genuine or as whole as the whole thing. So I'm going to be talking about my addictions, and kind of going towards the end there, we're going to transmute it through love and unconditional love back into what it's truly meant to be, which is neutral, unconditional love. So first, I'd like to start by sharing with you that the majority of people struggle with some sort of addiction at some point or another in their lives. It may not take over their whole lives. It may not even really be that big of a deal for some people, but they can relate to it on some level. So this video really does speak to everyone. But for people that truly deal with addictive personalities, and they're an addictive expression, that's their character, then it's a much bigger struggle because it can really take hold of your life. And it can really be destructive in some cases, depending on how you see it and how people around you are perceiving that addiction. So this can be a very multifaceted, dimensional thing. So I'm only going to be sharing my own story. Every story is different. And that way, if you do relate to my story, or if you would like to transmute your shame around addiction back into love, then this video will be very beneficial to do so. So I'm going to be starting off by sharing with you kind of my background. Yeah, I kind of share a little bit in my video, so if you've been watching, you know a little bit. I kind of just grew up, normal child in Texas, and a lot of different things happen. We can really get into it, but we're going to kind of speed up to my teenage years so that we can get into where this addiction really, took place and started to happen. So we're going to move up to my teenage years around that age, okay? And so around that age, he wasn't my first boyfriend, but I got a boyfriend, and he was a little bit older. So I had a little bit more freedom. He had a vehicle, he had a truck. So I was excited. We would go out, he would come pick me up. We'd go to his house. We'd go just do all kinds of stuff. So that was my first experience of freedom. Now that I had this boyfriend that had, a truck. And so we would go do all kinds of things, and he had all kinds of friends, and his friends were also about his age, and some of them were older. So there was just a mixed age, group there. And so some of my friends were already in the military, and around that time was the Iraq War. And so I had friends that were, going off to basic training and then coming back. And then I had friends that were going off to the military. And then my own actual boyfriend, he joined the military and he went to Iraq. But anyhow, prior to all of that happening, of him leaving, just to kind of paint a picture, it was kind of a very bigger kind of male dominated group of friends. And so as far as females, it was just me and one other girl, and sometimes, an odd girlfriend or here and there of the other friends. So these were the friends and people that I hung out with the most. And as you can see, like, they were mostly male friends, and they were all in the military. So it's quite natural for them to always have alcohol around any time that they were hanging out. So my boyfriend's house was the main place where everybody would hang out. So I was always there. And his house, his mom drank alcohol and everything like that, so she didn't see anything wrong with it. And she was a very big supporter of the military. So she really catered to these boys and these men. Actually, they weren't boys, but they were men at the time, of course. But I was younger, but I perceived them a certain way. But anyhow, she catered to them and got them whatever they wanted, and this and that. So they had all their alcohol and everything there. All to say, I was around it quite frequently. And I can remember the first time that I ever tried alcohol. And I can remember it was when we were hanging out like this in a group. And usually they would drink different kinds of alcohol and stuff. And I think this time, one of them had Bacardi Light or Bacardi Ice or something like that, they called it. And someone was like, you can drink this one. You can drink this one. It tastes just like Sprite. It just tastes like a soda. It's not going to bother you at all. Go ahead and try it. So I tried it, and to my surprise, it tasted just like Sprite, if not better, actually. I still remember it was very tasty. And so I tried it, and it was very good. And so I had one, and I had another, and that's all I had. I had two. And just with those two was enough to create, like the buzz of being not drunk, but just buzzed. And so I had that buzz, and I felt amazing. Like, it just felt like this amazing feeling all over my body. I felt relaxed. I felt like I was melting into the room. Like, I didn't feel as separate. See, I suffered a lot from anxiety, or had a lot of anxiety. And so the way that my body felt a lot of the times, especially in my anxious states, was very rigid, very hard. It felt very separate from everything. Like, I always felt very stiff. And so when I had those two drinks, I noticed that suddenly I was loose. I was relaxed. I felt good for once. I could breathe. I felt good. And so I felt this big sense of relief come over me that was just out of this world. And so I didn't continue on with it or anything like that. That was enough for me. But at that same time, as I was relaxing and everything like that, I really became very relaxed and kind of in the mood. And so that was my first time to kind of feel that way. In that moment, it wasn't my first sexual experience, but it was kind of leading up to that. We could say we moved up to like the next base or whatever. So we were exploring a little bit more in that area, and it felt very good at that time. And so it was the first time I had ever experienced the feeling of not feeling so identified, so in the body. I felt relaxation. I felt the body kind of leaving. And even in the times that like we were, let's say that we were like cuddling or bonding a little bit further. See, I was very closed of a person, and I wasn't okay with even something as simple as cuddling or anything like that. So at that time, even just that relaxation that led to that opening for cuddling allowed for like this feeling that was like heaven, this kind of oxytocin probably that was being released, and the dopamine and all of that. So you can imagine it was literally like being drugged, having an experience. And our brains can actually produce DMT and certain chemicals and things within themselves that can create the experience or the feeling of like euphoria, of really being in this kind of ecstasy or altered state. So I'm not sure if that's what happened, but anyhow, it was the feeling that I experienced. So my association at that time with those things became a very desired. I really desired those things. And so there became my journey of a struggle with addiction with both alcohol and sex. So for me, that addiction just blossomed at that time and continued. And so for me, it was something that I really would seek out, because it was something that would allow me to really lose myself. And it was something that I really desired. I didn't feel comfortable in my body. I didn't feel comfortable at all in it. So, so that was my first experience of it. And I never really felt it to be something negative. The only reason that I ever hid it from anyone was because I knew that I could get in trouble for it. I knew that other people would judge me for it. And so I became very good at managing these two addictions for the majority of my life. I had no problem managing them. I was able to work, do everything I needed to do while still feeding these two addictions. And so I want to point out something to you, that the majority of addictions, they allow the person to really kind of lose themselves, really kind of relax into a state where they're kind of no longer there. They've become one with whatever it is they're doing, whether that's gambling, alcoholism, or drugs or sex. It allows you to kind of merge with what is and lose yourself in that moment. And if you're new to this channel, I speak a lot about spiritual awakening and that sort of thing. I myself have experienced what I like to call non-duality, or the void. And when you experience that, what happens is you literally merge with everything, and it is literally that experience. So I've written a book about this, and I've really equated it to literally like having a mind-blowing orgasm, the biggest mind-blowing orgasm you can have. To have a spiritual awakening, at least the way that I had it, it literally was that way. So we can kind of see that these so-called addictions or addictive things that are out in the world are kind of little doses of what would be this big boom spiritual awakening. So people are very you know, enamored or even attracted to these things, magnetized to these things, and then eventually hooked by them, right? And the thing with them is that they can really they can really become a problem, because in our society, well, we have things to do. We have jobs to maintain, we have, you know, this and that, and we don't really allow people in our society the time to be sick, the time to unravel, the time to do these things and get back. And so these things are kind of done in the shadows. These things are kind of done in the background until everything breaks and someone has to have an intervention or someone has to be put in rehab. So there's not this natural progression of really, you know, embracing the person and helping them through their addiction. So I've been lucky to have the experience of both, of kind of being pushed to get help and also having the experience of it naturally just develop, and kind of with a little bit of guidance and support and love, letting the addiction flourish and do what it needs to do. Because essentially what this addiction is doing is trying to really do that, merge you with what is. It's trying to loosen and desensitize you to your identified sense of self, because you see, that's not who you truly are. That's why it's so painful to try to be this way, try to put on these masks, these personas, because we're truly not those characters. We are literally everything. We can be everything. So because it's so painful, the addictions kind of create this release that is kind of a mirroring to what we truly are: freedom, the space of liberation, of feeling like we are not tied to these bodies. You see, when you're in your addiction, or when you're, let's say, using a substance or something like that, you kind of lose that sense of control, and you're just like there. And so what happens is that's the same sort of thing that happens with an awakening. You awaken to what is, but at the end of the day, it's you're just there, and it's now you're just doing this. You're just doing it, and it's somehow just happening. It's hard to describe it, but it's literally like that. I've remembered some times that were pretty, you know, pretty dark and stuff like that with alcohol, where, you know, maybe I had drank way too much and I couldn't remember the next day what had happened, and come to find out I had done all kinds of stuff, you know. And it's like the body is just doing it, but you're not there. Same sort of thing, again, happens with awakening. That's why addictions are so appealing, and again, so addictive, and hook people so deeply, because they essentially mirror something that is very profound, very true, and very deep to our true essence and who we truly are. So going back to talking about a little bit of something that I think we should touch on is these shadows. So I mentioned creating shadows. One of the things that happens is shadows. We create basically these sides of us that we call bad. Now they're called, in psychology, they're called shadows. And people consider these things bad. I would just call them things that people call bad. So for example, if you were to be a very sexualized child or something like that, and you do something and then you're shamed for it, okay, so then now you create a shadow around that specific thing. Let's say it was dancing. Let's say that you were shamed for dancing because that dancing was too provocative, or you're just not allowed to dance in your culture or family, so that was shamed. No, you can't dance, that's wrong, cover up, don't do that. And so all of a sudden now the mind, the brain registers that information and computes it into your mind, and now becomes part of that programming, you see. And that programming is now going to tell you not to dance because dancing is bad, or whatever. But essentially dancing goes into what I would call a shadow. It goes into darkness. And the only way to bring it out and to bring it back into wholeness, to bring wholeness back into, let's say, this expression, is to bring light. We need a little bit of light, a little bit of opening for there to be light in that darkness. So in that darkness, we have to have a little opening. We have to see that dancing is not all the way bad. We have to transmute it. See, when I say transmute it, I mean talking about how it really is not just this way. Things are essentially just neutral. They're not good. They're not bad. They're very relative. And you can really see this when you look at history and how things have changed, how things have played out. And so these things are relative, okay? So when we look at these things as being good and bad, that's just our perception of it based on our understanding of the world at that time. But it can be whatever we want it to be. So even if we had an aspect of ourselves like dancing, like that we were a dancer, and everyone around us and everybody said it was bad, it still is still not bad. Inherently, it is not bad. Dancing is not bad. And if you were to transmute the idea that dancing was bad, and you were to embrace dancing and dance regardless of those around you and those people and culture that say it's bad, you would actually bring light to that dancing, to that darkness that they call dancing. And all of those people, when they see the light, which is love, which is coming from your heart and your expression, when they see that being played out in your dancing, they all of a sudden relax and they say, oh, that's beautiful. That's lovely. That's not bad. And so you see, that can be done with everything on this earth. It can be seen differently because everything actually is working differently. It's actually producing so-called good results, but we're not seeing them in the immediate 3D here and now, right in the second. But they do occur. Sometimes they occur instantly, sometimes they don't. But anyhow, all of these things are to bring light to them. So one of the things that I am called to do as this expression is to bring light to those addictions or those shadows that were in me. So I have to speak of those. Yes, I can speak of topics of psychology or spirituality that are in textbooks, but I'd only be regurgitating information that other people have said based on their own experiences or wherever they got the information. So to better serve you, I desensitize myself from that kind of information to only really share with you my own personal experiences to paint a picture for you that will energetically open something for you to see within yourself. You may have never experienced an addiction like alcoholism or sex, but you may feel energetically what I'm talking about. And that will create an opening to bring in a little bit of light into that darkness, into that shadow, so that you can transmute it and you can come back into wholeness. So I'm not going to go very far into my addictions and how far they went and this and that. I can only tell you they went very far, very deep. And that is a lot of times how addictions are. And so I had two aspects of it. I had the experience of having someone outside of me, like a partner, a romantic partner, push me to get help, which is what most people do, right? For their loved ones, they push them to go get help, counseling, all of this stuff. Then I also had the experience of having another significant other that embraced it. So I'm going to share both experiences with you to paint the picture with you. Neither one is right or wrong. Both will get you where you need to be. Which one you choose is up to you. I personally, I'll give you my opinion at the very end. So stick with me at the very end. I'm not going to be sharing a whole lot more around the sexual addiction on this video too much. just because of the content and the nature. But if you are interested in more information around that, please comment down below and just let me know that you would like more information around that. And I will see how I will create content um, in a safe space that will be good for us to transmute that and bring some light to that as well. So anyhow, going back to the addictions and the different experiences around the treatment of it. So with my um, so with my first husband, I didn't really deal with that. We didn't really get into that. So I'm going to move us forward into different time period now. So I dealt with it in two different ways. One way with my husband, he was aware of my addiction. He was aware of it, I think, pretty early on. And so we talked about it. Other aspects of the addiction didn't really come into play until later on, that I was okay with sharing that with him and stuff like that. So when I did, one of the things about the relationship that I am in is it's a loving relationship. It's a very, I would call it like a soulmate relationship. It's truly a relationship that allows for growth for each person, and a really deep amount of growth. There's a deep level of understanding there. So he was able to understand these addictions, and but he was pushing me to get help. So he was the kind of person that was pushing me to get therapy and get involved in like groups like AA and these sorts of things. So that is love. When someone pushes you to grow, to expand, to do things differently, where they see that it could be hurting you, that is love. I'm not saying it's not, but it's a different route, because when it's done this way, it does create a little bit more of a shadow, because for a while there, you do shame this addiction. You do see it differently. So just walk through me with this. So it's a bit awkward. I'll share with you my experience. So yes, I went to therapy and all of those things, and I really enjoyed it. And I talked to my therapist about all of these things. And so I really recommend therapy and inner work. You know, many people in the non-dual community, which is a lot of my viewers, shy away from inner work and therapy, thinking there's nothing to be done. There's plenty to be done, guys. You could do anything you want here. And if you are struggling with something, or, you know, whatever it happens to be, you want to talk something through, well, therapy is there for you, just like a doctor is there if you know, break a bone or whatnot. You know, we have a spiritual side to us. We are not just, yeah, as this expression, as we are expressing relatively here, we do have these aspects to ourselves. We have the body, the mind, and the spirit, and all three have to be nurtured. So anyhow, in seeking therapy, when you're seeking therapy, it really allows a space that is an opening that feels safe. So I was allowed a space that was safe for me to share these things, and I was able to share them and gain some more insight around them. And I was basically told something pretty scary by the therapist, as a matter of fact. She had told me that basically there was that I would need to come in basically for the rest of my life. And so that's what I was told. Of course, I didn't really believe that, because I didn't feel that. I didn't feel within my own being that there was that big of an issue. So when she said that, I really was distrusting of her. But, you know, I did go back a few times and things like that and gained some more insight. And I've continued on, not with her, but with others. And so that itself was an experience that is good. I would recommend it, even though, you know, she recommended it for life. That may be what her experience has been so far with patients and things like that. For me personally, within my being, I consulted myself. I discerned within my own heart, even way back then, and I knew that wasn't the case. I knew that I was already healed and complete, and whatever was happening in me was just something that was happening. I didn't see it actually as that shameful. Other people saw it shameful, and I had to share this with them because I didn't want to hurt them. For example, I had to share this with my partner, my romantic partner, my husband, because if he was to find out, or if I was doing something behind his back, that would be dishonoring and disrespectful to him. But at the same time, it was hard for someone else to accept this as something I was going to continue doing. So you see, that's where I needed supposedly the help. But really within me, I felt pretty good. Like I could have continued doing those things and being married. So I'm just painting a picture for you. It might sound very silly. It might sound very naive and whatever. But these are thoughts of an actual human being, an expression. So I'm expressing them because someone else out there may be feeling that. So when I expressed this to my husband and stuff, I really thought that he would be okay with it and we would somehow allow it to be integrated. And somehow in some ways we did. But in a very healthy way, that allowed for it and things like that. For example, I went to therapy, and this next thing that I'm going to talk about was at the time I was involved in a church. And so my husband really found out about this group at church. It was called Celebrate Recovery. Now, Celebrate Recovery is a newer kind of version to AA. It's a group that meets at a church usually, or some kind of community center or something. They meet weekly, and they meet for quite a few hours, from like 6 to 9. And usually this one was every Friday, because usually they meet on days that people will go to bars, or people are likely to go out and meet people, or whatever they go out and do with their addictions. So I went to this group, and this group was very interesting. It felt very friendly and everything like that. Okay, so then we go and sit down in our circles. And in our circles, you're supposed to pick a circle that's based on your addiction. Now, I've been to quite a few of these Celebrate Recoveries. Let me just tell you, you will not find one that has a sexual addiction circle, which is why I'm talking about this, and which is why, if you need more information regarding this, or you would like me to speak more on this, because I have a wealth of knowledge around this, please comment down below, because there just is not the support for this at all. So essentially, I had to join a group around pride, which had nothing to do with sexual addiction. It was very awkward, because they were all talking about that they were trying to, their addiction was pride, meaning that they were very prideful, meaning they were always boasting about themselves and things like that. So the addiction hadn't, it was a joke, really. I went home to my husband quite a few times, just very upset, because the fact that people would sit around and try to act like their pride was an addiction and some kind of problem, and to make this big deal out of it, when I'm sitting there with real issues and real stories and things that I don't have anyone to relate to with, was extremely frustrating. And I did not enjoy that group at all. But anyhow, I continued to go for quite a bit, because it created a sense of community, but it was extremely awkward. So I'm going to share with you what actually happens in those groups. So you get into this circle, and when you get into the circle, everyone goes, you start in the middle, and you just go around, and each person confesses Jesus as their Lord and Savior. So literally you just say, I confess Jesus as my Lord and Savior. And you say whatever your addiction is. You say, and I am a sinner. I am addicted to alcohol. And then from there, everyone in the circle is supposed to be quiet. They're not allowed to talk at all. They're not allowed to give eye contact. They're not allowed to make facial gestures. They're not allowed to make like thumbs up, anything like that. They're not allowed to nod, nothing. They cannot respond to you or acknowledge you. So basically, the majority of people in the circle look down. And when it's your turn, usually you look up, but no one's looking at you. And when it's your turn and you confess whatever it is that you are a sinner of, then now you confess what you've been struggling with. So for the most people in my group, they all confess, I'm struggling with pride. I went to my daughter's ballet group, and I boasted about my daughter, and I kept talking about her. So that was what I would hear. And then it came to me. And so I had to share, and I shocked these people. I really did. At first I started kind of small, and I think the second meeting, I was kind of frustrated. So I told my husband, so frustrated with these people in this group. All they talk about is like just stuff that's not even, why would you even go to a group for something like that? And so I went ahead and I told them, my addiction and stuff. And so I kind of did it as a shock value, because I was tired of hearing those stories. But anyhow, it didn't really help me at all. It didn't make me feel any better, nothing like that. If anything, it made me feel really awkward. So they have other rules around the group. The group itself is not allowed to acknowledge you outside of the group. So if they see you at a grocery they happen to see you at church, because it's like a church group, if they don't have to nod or smile or wave. They do not acknowledge you. So it's like they have to act like you never knew that they were in that group, or that you knew them in that way. They are not allowed to talk about your story, anything you've ever confessed in there, that you've even been there, nothing. So the whole thing is this secret sham that you just go in there and confess things and get out. But it's done in such a secret and seedy and weird, I almost want to say gross way. Because you go in there and, like I say, everybody's bowing their heads down, and you have to say you're a sinner of this and just confess these weird things and get out, and then no one can acknowledge you or talk to you about it. So it's absolutely horrible, guys. I would not recommend Celebrate Recovery unless you just need to divulge your secret. Now, let me take that back. Everything has a purpose here. And that's why I say, like, if you have to divulge your secret or let it out, that's the first step. So if it takes Celebrate Recovery to do that, then there is a benefit there. So I take that back. Everything has its purpose, but essentially to transmute addictions, to really learn about your addictions, to really learn about yourself, absolutely not. That is not the way. That is a very shameful way, and it never points you back to you. It never helps you, nothing. So there is another portion to Celebrate Recovery that they work on inner work in some classes and things like that. If you can get in on that, then that would be probably the most beneficial side of Celebrate Recovery. There is actually a beautiful part of Celebrate Recovery that I do like. For everybody that goes to Celebrate Recovery, they have meals. So that's part of it. They eat together. So I think that's a great thing, to eat together and have community. They also have childcare, free childcare for all people that come to Celebrate Recovery. And so the childcare is also based around the curriculum, or not curriculum. Well, the kids have a curriculum that's about addiction and how they can emotionally, it's emotionally intelligent kind of support for children. So I did look at it and all of that. So I think that is great. The emotional support for the children and the eating together and being together. But the groups themselves really should be a place where you can kind of talk to each other. It's just, it feels so dirty and shameful to go into a space and no one look at you, no one talk to you, then act like it was a dirty secret and you get out. And so that's exactly my experience around addiction, that it's a dirty secret and no one wants to talk about it. Everybody wants to hide it, yet they want you to seek help for it, yet they want you to be this way, but they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to go there. Even if they've had their own addictions, they don't want to go there. So I'm bringing light to this, and I really want to bring a lot of light to all of these things, especially if there's people out there that need it, and I'm sure that there is many. So I will be sharing a lot of things about my past and things like that, digging deep, because in order to really get to you and really to share what is going to help and inspire you, I have to dig deep. I have to dig deep, and I'm glad that I've been through all of these things, because these things give me a wealth of knowledge for me to dig into, for me to share with you, so that you can go ahead and transmute those for yourself. There is nothing wrong with you. If you have an addiction, whatever addiction that is, that's a sign. That's a warning. That's just, it's not even a warning. It's a sign that you're done. You're moving on to something new. You're going through a death right now. Whatever is going on within your character has had it, is fed up, is sad, is tired, whatever with this situation, is ready to shed. So it's doing whatever it can to kind of hit that rock bottom, to kind of get that release, to kind of feel that freedom for even just that moment. But in doing that and feeling that freedom in that moment, you see it loses, what's happening here is that it's loosening itself. It's loosening its identified ego. So it feels like a death. It feels like you're dying. It can feel crummy. It can feel weird. But that's just the death and rebirth of it. Then there's the other aspect of it that I'll go ahead and share with you now. So with the side of getting help, just to kind of tie that end of it up, it can definitely help you. It's a slower road. And it can confuse you a little bit because, like I say, it still leaves you feeling kind of shameful a lot of times. But if you're conscious of it, if you're open with your heart and you go to the right places, like let's say I went to that Celebrate Recovery and it just wasn't right for me, then you consult your heart and you know it wasn't right, but you know that you still need help. So you go somewhere else. You try something different. You see, we can't just keep knocking on the same door expecting to get a different result, a different type of help, or whatever it happens to be. There is many different infinite doors that we can go knock on. There is not just one door. So we knock on this one, that one's not for us. It just didn't resonate for us. It didn't do it for us. On to the next. So just like Ariana Grande, you know, thank you, next. We're going to move on to the next thing and just keep going, because we consult our own heart. We don't just get stuck into, oh, everyone said that Celebrate Recovery was the only way to recover. No, no. You decide. Go in your heart, you decide, because you see, your own expression knows what you need for yourself. So anyhow, I'm going to share my other side of it. On the other side of it is the more natural kind of way. I don't know if it's more natural, but it's just, I guess, the more loving way. Was my other side of it was experiencing a level of acceptance around my addictions. I wasn't judged for them. So I had another experience where I was with another person who showed me another way of being around that. Now, it didn't transmute my addiction. I still continued on with it, obviously. But it was a different experience of it. I wasn't in pain. I wasn't sad. Why? Because I was playing in it. I was happy in it. So as far as like the alcohol and all that with this person, we actually did that. We had fun with that. We went to bars and we had fun. We did that. That was part of our daily routine and stuff like that. So we would go in the day even and go drink, and then we'd go do other things. So that was just part of what we did. So we integrated that, even though most people would say, oh, drinking every day is an alcoholic. Yeah, most people would say that. Most doctors would say that. But at that time, it was completely natural. I was able to hold down a job. Like I say, I was able to maintain these addictions very well. Had a job, was even succeeding way above, my child. Everything was under control. So at that time, that was being looked at differently. So I had no shame around it. I didn't hide it. I literally went to an open bar and like drank there with people. Whereas in the shaming, in the other side of it, of where I was getting therapy and all of that side, where like you're with a person that's really trying to help you, a lot of it was done in the shadows, meaning that like if I was going to drink, I was hiding it, or I was doing it outside the home or hidden inside the home. So things are done in the shadows when you have judgment, when you have shame, when you have control of free will. Where when you're being accepted, things are done in the open. So people are aware of what's happening and you are aware of what's happening. It's actually a much safer zone, because there's people, like everyone's aware of what's happening. Whereas the other side of it, where it's just you and your addiction by yourself with no one, it's very dangerous. It's very hidden. And this is where people can overdose and things like that, because there's no one there watching you. You can go however far you want to. So so the other side of it, so that's how my alcoholism was at the time. It was just part of, I was literally just, I guess, a bar person. It was just that. And so, and on the other side of it, on that side with the sexual addiction, it was completely embraced. So even though that person didn't have that addiction at all, like literally they had no interest in that at all, they embraced it for me in a way that I could express it, in a way that I was very fulfilled, and was able to express that side of me in a healthy way, that I didn't have to stop doing it. I didn't have to get help and nothing. I just did it in a healthy, loving environment, and so and it wasn't even a healthy, it wasn't even a healthy environment. Later on, if I do share more on that in a private area where we can do so, I will share on that. And it wasn't just your traditional, it was whatever I wanted. It was freedom, it was liberation, it was whatever I wanted. And so because of that, I felt very free. I had this liberation. I had no shame about it. Did the addiction still continue? Was I still doing all of these things? Yes. It actually softened a little bit. I would say at a certain time, like if you are allowed to be in your addiction and really exhaust it, you kind of get tired of it after a little bit, and then you want a little bit more of the normalized. So it's not as dangerous when you're being accepted and loved. Whereas when you're doing things in the shadows, it's extremely dangerous because you can go into the shadows and overdose and go too far on your own and feel alone and feel shamed and guilt and all of these negative emotions. So it's your choice. Which way do you want to go as far as your treatment? Or, whatever healing you decide to choose. Are you going to go treatment or this? I would always suggest that whatever it is that you choose for anything, treatment or anything otherwise, consult your heart. Your heart will tell you. And there is times when treatment is the best thing. I've talked to many people where they had to literally create or do crimes to get into jail, to get off of drugs. That's what their heart told them they had to do. And that's exactly what they needed. So, you have to really consult your own self. I can't tell you what's right or wrong for you. But the purpose of this video is just to bring some light to addiction, to bring some light into that dark space of addiction that so many people shame, that so many people, do all kinds of crazy things with. Unless you're ready to get help, we all know this, people don't actually change these things. You have to be willing. See, that's why a lot of times in my videos, and I know it's triggering, I say whatever is happening, we're actually allowing that for ourselves. Either consciously or unconsciously. The majority of the time, 99% of the time, it's going to be unconsciously. But we are allowing it, and we do have the power and ability to do something different. And we don't necessarily have to. There can be a lot of learning within that addiction. For example, in order for me to speak on these topics, in order for me to help anyone, I have to go into these spaces, the deepest, darkest parts of me that I've literally had direct experience with. I didn't have a lot of experience with like very serious mental illness for a long time. I didn't have that, but I was counseling and working with people that did. And then with some of my health issues, at some point, I developed a panic disorder. And I had anxiety, but I wouldn't have considered that of like a serious mental illness that was very debilitating. But once I had that panic disorder, I experienced mental illness, and it was horrible, horrible. But even in the moment when it happened, I thought to myself, wow, what a gift and what a crazy thing mental illness is. Like, I've been treating these people all this time, and I never knew what a grip this thing could have on someone like this, that it could literally paralyze you, even though you're consciously there not wanting to be paralyzed. So that opened my eyes to just everything. So, to know these things, to have a full experience of life, you really have to dive deep into your expression. If your expression is being addictive, if it's being this way, expressing this way, get in there, figure it out, explore it. What's happening here? Why does my body want this? Why am I doing this? Why do I keep going to this place? Explore it. There is a wealth of wisdom anywhere. God is literally in, and it's in everything. Everything is your teacher. So don't think that you're wasting your time doing whatever it is that you think is a waste of time. As a matter of fact, lately, for a little bit there, I was, reading some books and things. I just picked up a book. It was actually a really good book, a coincidence. I'll share with y'all on a later date. But, reading different things and all this, guys, it's all about just living. If you live, you will experience way beyond what you will find in a book. See, what's found in a book was what someone experienced at that time, whenever that happened, okay? And that experience has happened, and they've put in a book, which is really cool because I love hearing stories, and I'm sure you do too if you're watching this video. So it's very great to have that. But at the end of the day, we can't just rely on knowledge. We can't just rely on other people, watching them. Even watching vlogs and all of these things, they keep you in a state that is very distracting. It's a paradigm that keeps you trapped in not actually living and being out there for yourself. See, like I say, getting back into that book is only going to go so far. Let's say here's infinity. It goes like forever, right? But that book is only this little tiny portion of infinity. And if you get out there and live, you can experience like whatever you want of infinity, the deeper and deeper you go. So this little book that he wrote here, you could experience something and write a book about some experience that was like that, because also things are progressing, things are changing. Your experiences and things that have happened in the past, those are things that happened in the past. What can happen now energetically can be something completely different. There's so much. The evolution of things is outrageous. So why not be an explorer of your reality and explore this new territory of whatever creation you want to create? You are the one. You are the one. You decide. So I don't want to get too deep into that because I'm starting to go down that beautiful rabbit hole that I love. But the purpose of this video really is to shed light on addiction, to bring light to this shame around addiction. If you're struggling with addiction, you're struggling with addiction. That's what's happening. It's like a phase. It's like a time in life. It happens for some. Some struggle more with addiction with others than others. I happen to struggle with it more. I thought I didn't struggle with it as much, but I do. I do struggle with addiction a lot more than I thought. And because of this, I've experienced levels of reality that many people just don't, because I get so addicted and I get so deep into something that I see it so deeply and love it so much. See, addiction really is just passion. It's passion for life. It's passion for love. It's passion for just everything. It's like you just want more. And you get, and it's like either you are addicted to something that you love it so much that you want more and more of it and you can't stop it, or you're so addicted to life that eventually it hurts so much what's happening here that you have to escape and you want more. This little limited life in this world where you're feeling like just this little human becomes too limiting, too small. So you want to break free. And so that's why you want to go into your addictions, see? Because in your addictions, you can lose yourself. You can feel free. What happens when you have sex? You completely merge with the other person, and you, like, if you're having good sex, you lose yourself in it. That's what it is. You lose yourself completely in it. And so that is what we're all seeking. We're all seeking freedom. We're all seeking to be lost and found in this. And so if you're lost right now, if you're in your addictions, I just want to tell you that it's not the end. It's not as bad as people make it out to seem. People made everything out to seem so bad for me all of the time. And it was never as bad as people made it seem. Gosh, I was terrified to death to have my first, sexual experience with my boyfriend. Everybody told me it was so bad, so painful, it would hurt. I would become having all these problems. I'd get pregnant, all this and that. Guys, no, it was the most beautiful experience ever, okay? So it was very beautiful. And because of that, of course, I wanted more of it. But people will tell you lies, will tell you it's one way when it's really the other. Don't believe things that come from fear. When people are speaking from fear, there's something wrong there. That's a distortion. When people are speaking from love, that's truth. So if you want to experience more of your heart, more of that opening, if you want to make an opening for that light in your heart, in your addiction, in your life, begin just to choose yourself. See, you don't know the power of just being you. Even just being you as the addict, that has so much power in this world. You are changing so many lives in doing that. So many people are going to see that. And when you turn that around, or when because it will, what happens with those things is there's only two choices. And so at some point that's going to merge into love, into the unconditional love, and you'll see it that way. You'll be able to speak about it that way. You'll be able to be an inspiration for others. So it's truly a gift, whatever you're going through. If you're addicted to something, that's only just a sign that you're a very passionate being, that you have a lot of passion and love within you. If you didn't, you wouldn't be addicted to anything. You wouldn't care. You wouldn't even be participating in life. So I hope that this message speaks to your heart. If it did, if it helped you, if it uplifted you, please share this message with others so that they may also have an opening in their heart. And if you're interested in guidance and someone to partner along with you to provide that space for you, that opening, I offer one-on-one counseling sessions. I've been doing this for over 18 years. I also have unconditional courses in my teachable course. I have various courses there and they're all on sale right now. So this is a great time for you to sign up. If you use the coupon code GIFT, 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 this is my gift to you. Accept this gift. See, no one can accept a gift for you but you. See, I could give you anything. I could even pardon you from prison, but unless you sign that prison pardon, you're not going to get out of there. So it's your choice. You decide. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all infinitely. Thank you so much.